So we got our template forms. So in my index.html, template driven forms. Okay, so main.ts, there is no change. In app.module.ts, so in order to work with template driven forms, we need to use this forms module. Whereas if you want to use model driven forms, then we need to use reactive forms module. So there are two modules are there. This forms module is for the template driven and reactive forms module is for the model driven approach. Okay, so as of now we are going to use template driven. So let me make my module to depend on this forms module. So that's the first part. Okay, and in my file, that is app module dot app component dot ts, I'm just going to delete all those stuff. And in the component.html, this is a template driven forms. And as I told to you, I'm not going to concentrate a lot with this part. So just for your understanding purpose, I'm doing that. Okay, this is, I'm just simply saying this is a person form. Save it, format the document, and let me open that. My template, yeah, template forms. So we got this template driven forms. So in this template driven forms, the first part we are going to do here is in my component. In my component, we are not going to write anything special. Okay, so already we have our app component ready. So I'm not going to write anything here as of now. We have to do everything with the help of our HTML only. That's why it is called as template driven. It is based on the template. So to follow up with the example, I'm just going back to our getbootstrap.com, pick up one form which is there in the CSS part. And let me pick up one form which is similar like this. Okay, or else, yeah, we have a horizontal form. So look at this. So there is a form stuff is there. So I'm just trying to copy this part, this complete part, and place that inside this panel body. Okay, so in this, I'm just going to create a simple stuff, a simple model. Like I need to I need to get the information about a name and the age of a particular person. Okay, so I'm just doing the changes accordingly. So this is name, input type equal to text, form control, and ID, I'm just saying name, and placeholder your name. So same thing for this is ID. So this is my first form group, second form group. So in this, we are just going to get the age. ID is age, label for age, your age. And I don't want this third part. Name and age, simple. So we are going to have a submit button. Input type equal to submit. So our template is ready. Let me check. Okay, so name and age, and it is responsive page. So what I'm going to do here is I just want to bind it. So when I click the submit button, Okay, I just want to get the name and age and display it in a probably however you want. I just want to display that in an alert box to make it easier. So we are going to do some important stuff. So I just want to wire up with my application. So everything needs to be done with the help of the template only. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do here is I just want to have a model called a person model. So let me just try to create a model here. New folder called models. So in this model, new file, let it be person.ts, export interface, person. So our model is going to be like this. That is, it's going to have a name, which is going to be of a string type, and it's going to have a age, which is again, it's going to be of a number type. Okay, so this is my model. So I just want to bind this model with my text boxes. Okay, with my text boxes I need to bind it. So before that, I'm just moving into my app component.ts. I need that person object. So as a best practice, person, which is going to be of a person type. Okay, it's not required here. I'm just going to simply bind it. So to do the binding, going back to my HTML file. So in this HTML file, so this is my form tag. Okay, so that form tag needs to be specified with, look at this is the important part. I'm just creating a template variable called person, okay, equal to Angular form. This is the first thing. So when I specify like this, in turn, it creates a model something similar to this. It creates a person object and it represents everything, whatever we are going to have. So when I say hash person equal to ng form, it has created a person object. Whatever we have done, that is done here, like create something like this. So this line will do that work. Hash person equal to ng form. So this form is denoted as an object now. Then in this form we are having two control. So this two control needs to be converted into properties. So to convert that into the property, it's very simple. So the first thing here is I need to go for that name text box, this text box, and just simply say hash name. Okay, hash name equal to my ng model. So when I do that, now it has created a two-way binding for this name stuff, but still it is not gone inside this person. So I want to put this into the person. So to place that into the person, once again we have to do a two-way data binding. Ng model equal to person.name. So when I do that, now this person object is having a name, and whatever you type in the text box, that will go inside that name. Sorry, go inside that person object. So same thing, we are going to do it for age as well. So to do that, I'm just copying this part, Control C and Control V. Hash age as a template variable, so which can take everything, all the details, and put this into person.age. Now we have created a form. Okay, that form is having a person object. That person object is having two properties. Everything is done with the help of templates. Okay, then finally when I click this submit button, one event is going to occur. That event is called as Angular submit, ng submit. So when I submit it, I just want to call a function in my application on submit. I want to pass this complete person object. Okay, person dot value. So when I say person dot value, this object, whatever you type, that will be just keep on created. That person dot value will be passed to this on submit method. So I'm just creating this on submit method into my app component.ts. It takes a person object which is of person type. So input dot slash models dot slash model slash person. Okay, from there I can just take the person interface. So we made it strongly typing. Just I'm going to print alert. Okay, ID dollar person dot name, sorry, person name and age. Person dot age. So let me just check that. Refresh. So we have our stuff. Is there any error? Yes, there is some error. Console. If ng model is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined as standalone. Okay, we need to compulsorily provide name, it seems. So we have name for this particular text boxes. Name and age. Refresh. So here we go. It's done. And now what's happening in the sense, it just created Karthik and the age, some age I have provided. When I click submit, in turn everything which is created in the template, that will be mapped with my person object. So we got that person object and you should get that age and this one. So we have just represented everything with the help of the template itself. So I have just created a person object. This is the way to create the person object, and the person object is saying that ng form. So when I say ng form, so whatever the form is denoted like one object. In that object, I want to create two properties. So how to create properties? By simply saying hash name. Okay, hash name and hash age. So we have created two properties. So these two properties needs to be placed inside this ng form. So I am just doing a two-way data binding. Ng model person dot name. So this will go inside that, and similarly person dot age. So we have completely constructed a model in the template part, and when you click that, I'm just passing that object. That object will come here, and our object is ready for us. Okay, and now what I'm trying to do here is like person which is of person type in the constructor, this dot person equal to name. So you can provide some default values also, Karthik. Okay, or so okay, we have not done that. We are going to do it with model binding. Sorry for that. So everything is done. in our model driven approach itself, sorry, in our template itself, and we are just taking that and working with that. So when I click submit, it's just happening. But what I want is I want to do some sort of validation. And once again, guys, we are not going to use this in our real-time application. That's the reason I'm not spending much time in that. So I want to perform some sort of validation. So for example, whenever you use this forms or this input text, as soon as the form module or reactive module is provided as a dependency, you can see this particular DOM, okay, has some attributes like this, like Angular pristine. Can you see Angular valid, Angular touched? So it will try to inject all those stuff for all the components. So this is by default, it will be available. So what do you mean by pristine? Pristine in the sense that particular control is not yet touched. So user never touched it. Touched it in the sense they have not edited it. Okay, but as soon as I type something, look at that, the text box become dirty because user has done some sort of work. And if you see that text box is still valid, why it is valid? Because I have not provided any validation. So let me try to provide some validation here. Like the text box is a required text box. How can I change that? Means with the help of simple HTML5 attributes, we can create that. Like it has some inbuilt stuff, like when I specify required, it becomes a required text box. Okay, here also I'm just saying this is a required one. It becomes a required text box. So when I refresh it, okay, and I inspect that element, now you can see that it becomes invalid. Why it is invalid? Because it is having this required stuff. But as soon as I type something, Karthik here, it becomes valid because it is fulfilling that particular condition. And moreover, it becomes dirty. So these are all some of the important things like you need to understand. ng valid, invalid, pristine. Okay, let me say inspect ng that pristine and ng dirty. So these attributes will be added or injected. So based on that particular stuff, that conditions happens. For example, so using this stuff, I can go ahead and say, let me provide a style URL. Okay, in the styles, whenever it sees an attribute called ng dash in the attribute selector ng dash invalid, okay, especially on input, let me change the border hyphen color to red. Let me check whether this is working or not. Border color ng in input with ng invalid, border color is red. What is happening? Styles I have provided, border dash color. Anything I'm missing? ng dash, okay, it's a class. No, it's not a class. Inspect ng dash invalid. Okay. Okay, I'm just checking whether this is working on H1. Color red. Whether H1 is changing? Yes. So in that case, ng dash invalid back border color. What's going on? Any? Because it's having that stuff, right? Inspect that element. So it is having that. So in the styles, I'm trying to provide that style. It should work. Let me dock it to the bottom. ng dash invalid border inspect border hyphen color red. Is that working here? Yeah, it's there. Okay, let me give for all the inputs first. Any input should have that. Refresh. Yeah, it's working. But the input which is having ng dash invalid should have that. Okay, save it. Refresh. No, it's not working. I'll just check it out. So we'll get this classes by default: ng valid, ng invalid, ng pristine, ng dirty. So all those stuffs will be available for you for free. You can just simply try to use that. Okay. I think it is available as a class, I guess. Let me check. ng dot input dot ng invalid. Let me try. Yeah, it's a class, I guess. So refresh. Yes. So it's invalid. Why it is invalid? Because oh, I'm sorry for that. I was just thinking that it's an attribute. So when I type Karthik, it's gone. And when you type something here, that required stuff is over. So you would have instead of typing, you would have told, I would have not wasted the time. Okay, no issues. Now these sort of free things will be available for you. So with that stuff, I can just simply try some more validations also. For example, I'm just going to have in my app component.html that name must be only alphabets. The name must be only alphabets. So to do that, we have pattern. So in this pattern, I can just simply specify my regular expression, like it should be A to Z and capital A to Z plus. Okay, so save it, refresh. Okay, still it is invalid. Why? Because it's not having that. So when I type Karthik, yes, it accepts. So it's always good to specify some messages, right? So let me try to provide some messages here. We'll have small, like class equal to text hyphen danger. Okay, so this is invalid. So when this should be shown in the sense only if that particular control is invalid. Okay, show this. So to do that, hash ng if equal to invalid. Okay, that particular part, what's the name, right? Name dot invalid. So you can see that it shows invalid. But for what reason it is invalid? I just want to say name is required. There are two chances are there. One for name is required. So there is a function called name dot has errors. So with the help of that name dot has error, I can just check like as error. If it is having an error called required, then name is required. If there is an error in pattern, name dot has error in pattern, then it should display this like only alphabets allowed. Refresh. So name is required, only alphabets allowed. So like this we can try a lot of stuff. And similarly here we have the age. In the age I'm just going to simply specify that it is a required field. But if you notice that as soon as I run that application itself, it's showing that name is required. I don't want that. Okay, I don't want that. I want to show only if it is dirty. And moreover, the submit button should not be enabled. Submit button should be disabled. So submit button, let me disable that by simply specifying it should be disabled. It's an attribute, so that attribute binding. So disable based on when that particular object, that is person, right? That's what I have created, hash person. So copy that. The person dot, if it is valid, okay, if it is valid, enable it. Otherwise, just disable it. So that this button will be disabled until unless it becomes, the form is becoming valid. Karthik. Now it can be enabled. And we'll get that appropriate error messages. And I don't want that error message needs to be displayed in the initial stage. Okay, so I can provide some condition. So this name, it should be based on two conditions. That is, it is having this error also, and or let me have R. Okay, let it be and only. And name dot dirty. So if both the conditions satisfies, then display it. Otherwise, don't display it. So look at that. Initially, it is not displaying. And even I can get rid of this red color border by just specifying if both the conditions, that is, it should be dirty as well as invalid, then only it should show that. So how can I do that? Means invalid as well as .ng dash dirty. So look at that. So it is not showing, but as soon as I start typing it, then it will show. And the submit button, so it's working, Karthik, with some age. Submit, it does. So this is all about our template driven forms, but I highly recommend, please never ever use this template driven stuff, because it will be very hard for testing. You cannot write the unit test cases at all. It's going to be very tough. So in order to make our unit testing and in order to have the full control, you have to always go with the reactive forms. Great. So I hope you all got the idea, like it has some classes, then we can just try to do some sort of, everything is done with the help of from the template part itself. Now we are moving into the concept called reactive forms. So when you're moving into the reactive form, it gives the complete hold. You have the complete control. Okay, let me try to do that. So file, close the folder, going back to Angular 4. Reactive dash forms. And this is a recommended one. And let me try to open that file, open folder, reactive forms. So in this reactive forms, going back to my index.html, I've changed it to reactive forms. And in my index.html, sorry, app component.html, reactive forms. Then finally, in my module, app module.ts, instead of having forms module, now we are going to have reactive forms module. Okay, so we have a reactive form module. I'm going back to my HTML part. I'm just deleting all those stuff. No forms. So save it. Reactive forms. So we have our stuff ready. So the interesting part here is like we are going to start from our app component .ts. In the app component.ts, we are just going to create everything on our own. Okay, rather having it in a, I can represent my form in a model. I can represent a form in a model. So we are just going to have three properties here, like a person object only once again, name, then email and city. And we are going to do validations and all those stuff, but this time we are going to do it with the help of reactive forms. So what is this reactive forms all about? In the sense, it's very simple stuff. It's all derived from a class called abstract control. Okay, so we have abstract control. So the abstract control is going to have three derived classes. One is form control, another one is form group, and finally form array. So all those three classes are derived from this abstract control class. So with this only we are going to represent a form. Okay, so to start up with this, it's going to be very simple. Like we are just going to have our application and my module.ts. So already we have imported reactive module. Going back to app component.ts. So in this app component.ts, this time we are going to do that. We are going to create the form. So how can I create the form means I'm using import from at angular/forms. So I want to create a form. So to create the form, we are supposed to create the form group. So the form group is used to represent a form. Okay, not only a form, a collection of form elements. So I'm just taking that form group. And let me try to create that person form. So person form, I'm creating a form in the coding perspective. In the coding part, I'm creating a form. So it's going to be a form group. We have created it. Now I can just create a constructor. So in this constructor, I can say this dot person form equal to new form group. So form group takes an object. So inside this object, you can create, I told there are three properties, right? So one is name, then email, then city. So these are three properties we are going to create. So each and everything, so name is one form control. So new, and there we are introducing form control. So argument of type, okay, this dot person group, What is the error? It's an object only. It's an abstract control. Then it should work. Yeah. So it takes three controls. The first one is name, email, and city. So each and every control can be created in this way. First, name, new form control. As of now, it's not pointing to anything. So if you look at this, I'm having a form. That form is having one control called the name. That control can be anything. It can be a text box. It can be a drop-down list. It can be a text area. It doesn't matter. In fact, I have created a form here. Okay. So let me say, comma. Next is email, new form control, null. Then city, new form control. Yes. Format the document. So to be frank, what I have done here is I have created a form. And what I'm going to do here is I just want to display that form like console.log this dot person form dot value. I can get that value. And let me run this and check. Refresh. F12. You should see an object. Name, city, everything is null. So we have just represented a form with the help of the form group, and that form group is having three controls: name, email, and city. What is the beauty here in the sense? Now everything is available as a code. When it is available as a code, we can always test it very easily. So that's the reason we are going for this reactive form. This is one way of writing the code. There is another way. There is another class called form builder class. So what is the usage of this form builder in the sense? It is used to, rather you create it like this one by one, I can inject it and I can create that with the help of the form builder. So in the constructor, let me inject it and get that form builder instance. And this is a recommended way. Okay, so I'm using add inject. I'm going to inject this form builder. Let it be FB, which is of form builder type. And they want to use it in another methods means just simply say private. So in the console, in the constructor, when the constructor invoke, I'm just going to call a function named this dot build form. So let me create that function, build the form. So in this build a form, I'm just going to say this dot person form equal to this dot FB, that is form builder. So rather you say new, no need to say new form group, new form control. Everything can be created with the help of this form builder now. So this dot FB dot group, it's like a factory kind of stuff. It takes an object. Okay, this group, this person form, now it's going to have three controls. So you can simply say once again name, which is this dot, sorry, name this dot FB dot control. You can do that, but there is no need. Just simply you can say it's null. Name, email, null, and city, null. So same thing happened, but in a very what to say, like in a readable manner. Now I'm having a form. That form has three components: name, email, and city. And still, when I call console.log this dot person form dot value, I can get that complete stuff. Refresh. Yes, you can see name, email, and city. Everything is null as of now. Okay, now it's time for us to bind it with my templates. That's where the concept comes into the picture. So to do that, I'm going back to my app.component.html. So here it's going to have a form tag. Okay, and this form tag needs to represent my form group which I have created here. I have created a form group here, right, called person form. That needs to map with this one. So to do that, only one stuff we are supposed to do. Simply specify a form group directive. In that form group, specify this person form. Now we got that person form here, which is representing that, which is mapping that. Okay, and inside that form tag, we are going to have a div with a class called form dash group. This is bootstrap stuff. So that's another interesting part. Okay, which is almost similar like our Angular 4. Like we have our form group. So in this form group, so the first control is going to be my name. Okay, label. I'm not interested in for and all. Just simply say it is a mandatory field name. So we got that name here, and we need to have a text box. Input type equal to text, and this is going to be our form control. Once again, this is in our what to say, in Bootstrap, same thing, form dash control, so that it will be easy for us to remember. So we have our form control, and this form control needs to map with that name. So to do that, form control name equal to that name which we have created. So it will go inside that form group called person form, take that form control name. So it's done. So name is done. Copy, paste for email, paste for that city. Okay, so format the document. So name and email. This is your email, and here let me have our drop down list so that it will be something different. So you should understand that form control means it represents anything. It can be a drop down list also. So select. So the select is going to have some 3 options as of now, like option. Let me say this is Bangalore, Chennai and Mumbai. Okay, so let me try to provide value. It's Bangalore, Chennai, and then finally Mumbai. So we have the 3 options here, and this control, once again, form control name you need to specify. In form group, our control name is city. Okay, then finally let me have some 2 buttons here. So the first button is a submit button. So button type equal to submit. I'm just saying it is a primary button by class equal to btn dash primary, and this is submit. And finally I'm having the reset button. This is also primary, reset. So let me check. So we have a drop down list. So everything is done. Okay, name, email and city. So I just want to check whether this is working properly or not. On the button click in the submit button, when I click the submit and I hit the submit button, it's just going to submit the form, right? So here I'm just going to say ng submit, I just want to call the submit form. So when the form is submitted, so this person form, it's already there. No need to pass anything. So we got that form. The form is there. So going back to my stuff and let me write that function. Submit form. It's void. Just simply I'm in the console. I'm trying to print this dot person form dot value to check whether it is binded properly or not. So refresh. So name Karthik. Karthik at the rate of yahoo.com and city Bangalore, submit. So see that we got that object. So we have mapped it and we are receiving that. And the interesting part is when I click this reset button, I just want to reset the form. Okay, I can just simply create a copy of that and just say reset the form. No need to write any special code. This dot person form dot reset. When I say reset, it will be reset back to the that older code. Whatever I type, when I click reset, it become reset. Okay, and I want the default value as Bangalore needs to be selected, means you can always say city Bangalore as a default value, and you can assign with any default value, name default Karthik. So it will have that as a default. As of now, this is null. Okay. The interesting part here is like I'm having my control. My control is this particular form is there in the code format. That is one interesting part. Now what I need to do here is I want to perform some sort of validations. So if I want to perform the validation, that can be done with the help of validator class, okay, which is available in the Angular reactive forms. So I'm just picking up that validators. Yeah, validators. Yeah. So in this validator, now I want to validate my name. I want to make this as a mandatory field. So to do that as a mandatory field, just put this into an array, comma. Okay. Now I need to specify my validations. Like I can say validators dot required. So it becomes a required validator. It's having that that particular property. It's by default it's having that. So when I run this, refresh, inspect, look at this. It is invalid. It's invalid. Okay, better we'll just provide that styles here also. So it's having that ng dirty, right? So when I try to type something, delete that, you should see that. It's having the feature by default. No need to write any special code in our templates. So just I need to say it is a form control name. Okay, it is invalid. Okay. So now I just want to provide that messages. Okay, provide that message. This is an important point, and there is no proper documentations are there, so please pay attention here. Here I just want to have name is required. So to do that, we had a small tag with class equal to text hyphen danger. Name is required. So if I want to display this, I need to just check whether that particular component is invalid or not. Okay, so I can just simply say star ng if equal to I'm just going to provide that name dot, if it is invalid, just show that. I refresh. There is a problem. F12, it says that cannot read the property of invalid of undefined, because name is not defined here. You cannot just take that name because it is it's a form control. It is not available as a property. Nowhere it is available as a property. It is inside the form control. So I need to create a property here. This is a TypeScript stuff. So in TypeScript, like get accessor, set accessors. So we can create a property with the help of get accessor. So let me just quickly create a get accessor called name. Get name. This is the way to create the get accessor, which is nothing but a form control, which is supposed to return a form control. So now we have a property called name so that we can access it in our form. Okay, so which is supposed to return a form control. I want to get this control. How can I get that? Means simple, return this dot person form dot, there is a function called get. In this get you can specify the path. The path is name, so it denotes this one. But I want to return it as a, right now it is returning as abstract control. Okay, but I want to return it as a form control. So you know how to do that. Cast it by saying form control. Done. So same way for those two things. I don't want to do it for city, name and email, so that I can use it in my template. So now we got the name. So save it, refresh. So we got it. That name is required, and this needs to be now we can have n number of conditions. Okay, name is required and it should be, I want multiple validators. So if I want to have multiple validator in my validators, this one, okay, so here we can have array of validations. So the first validation is validators dot required, comma, I want the another one, validators dot pattern. So in this pattern I just want to specify that yeah, it should be only alphabets, A to Z, capital A to Z plus. Okay, so now we have two things, two validations are there. Then you can always go ahead into our control, and I want to write this is for required stuff and this is for pattern stuff. Only alphabets allowed. So how can I check that? We have already done this, like name has an error required. Not only that, if it is not pristine, show that name dot pristine and name dot has error required. In that case, show this. Otherwise, here name dot has error. Many a time the people will do this mistake. I have done many a times this. Instead of as error, I'll say has errors, because I got practice with the dash errors in .NET. So has error, if it's having a error pattern, then do this. Done. So same thing, I can do it for email also, but in the email I'm going to have a separate concept. That is, I'm going to create my own validator, custom validator. Okay, so name, so only alphabets allowed, name is required, yes, it is valid. And the interesting part here is I can just always show whether the form is valid or not. I can check that after this button I'm having a horizontal ruler. I want to just check that form value, what is happening there in my form, that I can always get it. Person form dot value, I want to see it in the JSON format, and also I want to see the status. So form status, whether it is valid form or not, you can check that with the help of person form dot status. So look at this, refresh. So we got that form value. So name is null, email is null, city is by default Bangalore. When you change it, it will try to change. Okay, and name, as you type, you can see that Karthik, and it's valid. If I type H, it's invalid. We can get all those information, and still that submit button is not disabled. Let me try to do that. DISABLED. So disable equal to based on that validity. If it is not valid, sorry, person form dot, then disable it. Okay, it's disabled. Only if the data is proper, then it will enable. Okay, so it works properly as of now. Now what I want to do here is I want to create a email validator. Okay, rather having inbuilt validator, there are a lot of validators there. You can see that control click this validator. These are all the validators we have. Required validator, email validator, minimum length, maximum length, pattern, null validator. These are all the inbuilt validator. So like this, I want to create my own validator called email validator. Okay, so far, so I saved it. I want to create my own validator for email, and let me have one condition here. The condition here is if the email ID they are typing is karthik@test.com, then it is invalid. Let me have like that. karthik@test.com, if they type, then it is an invalid email. So let me try to create that. So the scenario can be anything. I'm just giving this scenario here. In my app component, I'm creating an email validator. And once again, you can have this file in a separate folder called validators. That's up to you. I'm just creating a new file called email.validator.ts. Okay, so we have our email.validator.ts. Let me export this class as email validator. I saved it, I exported it, and I want to just write my own method. That's a static method needs to be there. So to create that, I'm saying let me have a static is valid email. Okay, so is valid email. I'm having a static method. So in this, I want to get that form control. So let me get that form control. I want to pass that control. Which control means the text box or form control, that email control needs to be passed here. So this is actually a form control type which is inside our input from at Angular/forms. Form control. So we got it. So I've given a condition. The condition here is if that particular control, we got that complete control, then we have everything with us. If control dot value, let it be karthik@test.com. Guys, you can write anything here. Like for example, I can write a service. I can go and check in the database whether that, for example, I want to check is that a unique email ID or not. Anything you can just write down. If it equals kartiktest.com means something wrong. Okay, I'm just going to return an object which says invalid mail ID to true. Otherwise, just simply return null. If simply it returns null means it is valid. If it is returning something like this, you can give any message. I'm just saying return invalid mail ID as a null or true. Okay, when it is reaching this kartik@test2.com, if you provide that, I want to just say I want to return something. If it returns some object, then it has error. If it is having error, then you can do something with that. Okay, so save it and let me try to map it with my application. That is in email validator. I want to use it in my app component.ts, this part. Okay, so just place cursor, comma. I want just like validator dot, required I said, right? So similarly now I'm going to say email validator dot is valid email. Okay, so we need to import that, import from dot slash email validator. Copy that, email validator dot. Okay, so we have our method just is valid email. So it's done. Okay, so that condition will comes into the picture. Refresh. Okay, so name I'm saying Kartik, form is valid. You can see that. Whereas here email, if I give this @test.com, it becomes invalid. So form becomes invalid here. So I've just given a condition. You can just write any code here in this part. You can just write you can inject a service, go and check the database whether that particular, for example, I want to have a unique mail ID. Okay, I can create a email validator dot unique. Okay, instead of is valid email, you can just give a service call, give an AJAX call. So when you give an AJAX call, then there is a small issue is there. It is not a what to say synchronous validator. It is asynchronous validator. Have you understood what I'm saying? So when I give anything, if I want to hit the services, it's going to be in async validator. It is not a synchronous validator. So what I'm trying to say here is, for example, let me just make this as a async stuff. Okay, so instead of just returning this stuff, let me make it asynchronous. So if it is asynchronous, before that let me try to show that message stating that invalid email ID. Okay, so let me try that. Go back to our app component.html. Copy, so we have our property email dot has error. What error means? That error that we have specified, invalid email ID, where it is. If it's having that error, invalid mail ID. Check, refresh. Kartik@test.com. So we got that. So invalid email ID. So whatever you pass, some people used to have the messages separately and they can take it and use it. That's all the latest stuff, but this is the basic. Okay, now I just want to have a asynchronous way. Okay, this is synchronous stuff. So let me make this as asynchronous. How can I make this asynchronous means? We'll just return a promise. Okay, we'll try to return a promise, that too, and we'll try to resolve that later, like after some 5 seconds, I just want to mimic that, like it's hitting the database and it is coming for async validation. This is sync validation. Okay, I'm just going to perform a async validation. So to do this, let me comment it first. So to perform a async validation, you know that you're supposed to return a promise or observable or whatever you want. So I'm just saying return new promise. So promise object will have resolve and reject. Okay, so we are returning a promise here. Return new promise with resolve reject, and we have a set timeout. I just want to call this after some 5 seconds. If the same code, if the control is having this one, okay, let me, instead of returning it, let me resolve it like this. Otherwise just resolve with null. Now comes the interesting part. Some code is happening wrong. So set timeout. Unexpected token. This bracket is, this is closed, and this is for set timeout. This is for that. No need. It's returning a new promise. That's it. One more bracket. No. Return new promise. It's all perfect. Save it. Close and open. Okay. Many a times in this TS config, because I told you, right? Okay. Let me comment everything. Then let me open our email validator, or I'm just having it in a notepad to check whether this is problem with my TS config file. Recycle bin, close. And open my email validator. What is going wrong? Set timeout. Set timeout takes this one. If control resolve. We commented properly. Are you finding any mistakes here? Let me just type that once again. Return new promise. So promise is a function which takes resolve and reject. Okay, I made a mistake here. Sorry for that. I closed this. I have not passed that object at all. Sure. format the document. Yeah. So in that case, ts config dot json. Save it. So email validator, perfect. Now it's done, but this is async validation. So what is the change you need to do here is, you need to do one small changes here. That is in your app component.ts, rather having your validator, comma, if you see, the second argument is for synchronous validator, but it is not a synchronous validator, now it's asynchronous validator. Okay, this is for synchronous stuff, and the third one, if you provide that, it is for asynchronous stuff. And what is another benefit you are going to get in the sense, I can just give some sort of indication. For example, I'm just going to copy this. This email is doing a AJAX activity or a asynchronous activity that you can find out with the help of email.pending. So if still it is not yet resolved, okay, that email.pending will be true. If it is true, I can just say some messages like validation is in progress, like a progress, it just give a information that some sort of asynchronous stuff is happening. Validation is in progress. Okay, let it be warning, and let me check, refresh. So here it is trying to validate it. Okay, for each and every time when I type karthik@test.com, if something goes wrong, it should say invalid. If it is correct, testing.com, it hits a database. I'm just giving you an idea. Now it is correct. It is valid. Can you understand? So here you can just always check validation is in progress. So it's just giving a AJAX request, and the form status is converted from pending state. So you can always check that.